Good evening. Welcome back to the Upset Podcast. Tonight we are talking about battling the hidden idols, addiction in daily life. Coming up next. Hello, once again, welcome back to the Upset Podcast. We're so happy that you tuned in on this Sunday. And I'm also happy that we're going to have a great conversation. Starting off first with these co hosts. Hello, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Hey, happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday. I'm excited because I'm always excited when we have guests, but I'm also excited to see you guys. How was your week?
It's great.
It's great.
Awesome.
Gravy. So I know neither of you are Eagles fans, but I know that the Eagles are playing the Cowboys right now. But you guys not interested in any of that, huh?
Not at all.
But my
paint dry.
wow, it's so weird not to have an Eagles fan on here. You know, Tally's number one, but yeah, my understanding is that they're up over the Cowboys. So just throwing that out there. So I've been looking on the news. I'll start with some kind of national news in terms of our president and this 50-year mortgage. There's getting a lot of conversation regarding this plan to enact a 50-year mortgage. I want to know you guys' thoughts. You both have mortgages. I have a mortgage. Is that something you would be interested in, a 50-year mortgage?
that sounds, when I heard it, I was like, that can't be real.
I know, right? I was like, who would do that? Who would do that?
I'm sure somebody will sign up for it.
Of course. I was listening to some commentary and they were sharing that with a 50-year mortgage, the interest that you are paying on that doubles that of a 30-year mortgage, and the interest you would pay over the life of the loan. It's like, who would sign up for that? I mean, I get it. The whole thing is so that your monthly mortgage would be more affordable, but it would take you forever to build any type of equity on your property, which is one of the reasons that some people get into or want to buy a home so that they can continue to build up equity. So, I don't know. I think it's ridiculous, but we'll see how that goes. I think there was also a proposal was it something for the car loans as well? Some other type of loan.
It all sounds like slavery to me.
That's what I was hearing too. Like they want us to be slaves to the banks. You know, they're making money off of this. The longer they can get more money, and we look and make it seem like they're doing something for us, the better it is. So I don't think any of us are following.
And they're trying to make, certain degrees not professional.
Oh, yes.
Student loans, so the whole student loan thing.
Yeah, that's such an insult. And I saw several people who shared how insulting it was to, have their degrees deemed,
not professional.
Non-professional, especially since they've been working professionally in that field for some time. Yeah, you're right, Ryan. This is definitely a way to keep people poor in debt, slave to the lender, right? And can you imagine being, having to wait till 80 years old to pay it off? Let's say you buy a home at 30 and you're continuing. Now, some people say, oh, we pay it off sooner, but a lot of people get very used to that payment and just keep doing it for as long as they can. So it is very much can be a trap for sure. I don't recommend it. If should have happened, I don't recommend it for sure. Also, some I don't call it Adventist news, but we know Oakwood University recently had some new appointments of leadership. They've been very, the president, Dr. Gina Brown, has been very vocal about the fact that there's some changes will be coming up as they're trying to restructure and get things in order. And a couple of new appointments were announced. Was it Friday? If not Thursday, but recently, the appointment of Jermaine Jackson to as the vice president for finance there at Oakwood University, and also um, James Doggett Jr., who is the vice president for recruitment and enrollment, something around that. Sorry if I got the titles mixed up. And so I saw a lot of commentary about people being excited about seeing some of our younger leaders coming into these roles, and hope the best for my alma mater and your alma mater as well, GP. But
Yeah, my daughter graduated.
oh, you got something in there? Okay, we're all excited. That's right. Keita said, "Don't leave him out."
Yeah, my daughter graduated. From Oakwood.
Yeah, exciting times. They're all capable leaders, and we expect great things from them.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited. And I was in school with Jermaine, and of course, we used to call him Tito, as the name was Jermaine Jackson, so we called him Tito. And so for me, it's just great to see someone that you went to the institution with coming back, not, with a very prestigious but a very important role for the university to help propel it forward. So really excited about that. And everyone else who will be part of this shift that the university is currently trying to make. So we just pray for the leadership there, and that things will continue to be on that upward trajectory. Anything else catch you guys' eye over the week that you want to share with us before we transition to our
Yeah. One thing, in the Philippines, a conference treasurer was shot.
Oh yes, I saw that.
A former pastor. His son said that the attack was fueled by a personal grudge. So
yeah, he said something about it having feeling like there was some mismanagement of some funds, and you know how people say you don't mess with people's money.
Play with people's money. Treasurers can't play with people's money.
Church or not, when it comes down to it, those are one of those things that people's kids and people's money. Those are one of those things where people will, excuse a lot of things because. So I don't know if that's was really all about. I'm sure more of those details will come out, but that tells you the times in which we're living, and that was startling to hear, actually. I mean, it's no longer just coming to the mic at the constituency sessions anymore, huh? People are taking matters into their own hands.
My Lord.
Oh, yes.
Of course, Mondani, he met with Trump, in the White House. That was interesting. Marjorie Green Teller, she's January. So
yeah, and I saw a lot of commentary about that. A lot of people were saying, of course, she's waiting to, she can be vested and get, the full funds, and also she's looking forward to transitioning to maybe another area of politics, and so there's a lot of speculation, but a lot of it I don't think is speculation. A lot of it I think is just fact. But I guess we'll see what happens. But there seems to be a lot of mistrust as it relates to her and how genuine her intentions are. But I guess we will see. But time will tell. Yeah. I've been trying to keep up with the news a little bit more. See what's happening in the world. Hello, we have some friends here from DC. Hello, Carmen. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you being here. Okay, guys. So whenever we have guests, we like to maximize our time with them. So we're going to go ahead and transition into welcoming two guests to our program this evening. I kind of gave you guys a little taste last week for those who are watching about the fact that we were going to have a show talking about addiction, recognizing that it's definitely something that we're seeing, not just in our personal lives, but even something that we're witnessing in our church environment. And a lot of times we're not always skilled as to what to do. Sometimes it may be our own addiction. Sometimes it may be a family member. Maybe it's even a loved one or a church member that we care about. And so we really wanted to have this discussion. And this is something we hope that you will share with individuals, because we have two individuals who will be joining us that have resources, they have tools, and we want to make sure all of you are aware of them so that we can tackle um, what we're referring to as the hidden idols that kind of take over our lives sometimes when we're not noticing. So let me first introduce Brother James Jackson.
Hello, everybody. How are you, everyone?
Yay! So for those who don't know, Brother Jackson is our leader for Adventist Recovery Ministries for Allegheny East Conference, something that he has been spearheading for several years. How long, Brother Jackson?
Close to 30 years.
Woo! 30 years. So you know a little something about this subject. And I understand you work very closely with our other guest here, Clarissa.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, we're so happy to have you both. And we appreciate your ministry and what you've been doing throughout Allegheny East. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Brother Jackson. Tell us how you got involved in this ministry and kind of your journey. And then Clarissa, we're going to kind of ask you a little bit about yourself and why you're passionate about this ministry as well.
Yeah.
All right, Brother Jackson.
Oh, well, I'll start off sharing the fact that I'm personally in recovery. When I came back to the church, I was introduced to the regeneration program. That's what the Adventist Recovery Ministry was first named. That was back in the time when Foster was the health ministry leader.
Yes.
And ever since then, we've been part of the Adventist Recovery Ministry. I worked for years in the field of alcohol and drug. I actually was able to got sober and able to support myself as a result of that. And I was a licensed certified alcohol and drug counselor for years, and then I directed a recovery program for 20 years. For 20 years, and somehow I see it was a group of guys in Pottstown, Pennsylvania.
No.
Got together, and that's when we started the Adventist Recovery Ministry. It was with the who was we with? We were with the ministry then at that time.
Okay. Wow, I didn't know that. That's how it started. Oh, very nice. Very nice. Thank you. We'll dig a little deeper into your story as we talk a little bit more. But Clarissa, tell us a little bit about you and how you got involved.
Well, for me, I needed a job.
Okay.
And I was going through mishaps in my marriage, divorce, and everything to that extent. And Mr. Jackson decided to put it up on Facebook. And I said, hey, let me jump in. And then when I jumped into it, I actually recognized this is something I wanted to do, because the more I look into the field, I start taking more inventory and recognizing, okay, I don't do drugs and alcohol, but I do have addictive personality. So the feel of it.
Wow. So you felt kind of like that personal, though you may not be addicted to a substance, or you know that you have the general makeup of someone who could pick up some addictive behavior.
Yes.
Wow, that's pretty deep, because I feel like that's a lot of self-awareness that many people don't have. And so how did you come to know that about yourself?
Again, I hate being a hypocrite. So more that I delve into the information that I was given and have to provide to the clients, I more or less try to see how it was applicable to myself as well. And then also go into therapy, learning about certain things is like, okay, I'm no different. Oftentimes I don't want to get too deep into it as yet, but oftentimes we would just want to focus on the drugs and the alcohol. But the more I think about it, it's the more I recognize, hey, drugs and alcohol is the last step. So I started teaching from the perspective of the roots, which is the potatoes that you have to dig deep to get to what caused the apples to be bad, that people would only look at from the tree. Hey, you are addicted to a substance. So more that the apples fall and people are relapsing, unable to identify why the relapse is happening, is because the root cause wasn't being addressed.
Wow, I like that. Yes, we're gonna dig deep into that. Okay, so kind of ready to jump into our discussion. Oh, you got a couple of someone here recognizes you, both of you, Lillian Harrington. She said you're her classmate
Yeah.
from 54 Institute.
Yeah,
And
that
she
is.
said, to you, Carissa. You know her?
Yes, I do. Philadelphia Ebenezer Church in Philly.
All right, love that, love that. Okay, Sharon Howard says, "Good to see her boyfriend on here tonight."
She's been cheating on me lately.
I love it. I love it. We're here with friends tonight. Looking forward to having a great discussion. Hello to you, Mary. Thank you for joining us. And we definitely want to make sure our audience knows that if you have questions that you want to ask our guests, you know what to do. Just put it in the chat, and we will talk about that as well. We'll be able to address those questions as well. All right, so I'll start off with my first question, and then we'll all kind of jump into the uh, the material here. So, what class? We want to start real basic. What classifies an addiction? What makes something an addiction? Because a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't have an addiction. I can stop anytime I want." That's what we always hear when we think about addiction. But how are we able to identify what is an addiction so that we could go back from there?
So do you understand?
Can I go ahead of that? Because one of the things I wanted to point out to you first is that for years the alcohol and drug field, they always recognized the drugs and they always tried to treat the drugs. And nowadays they have changed the whole model. Now they begin to look at it from a holistic point of view. They used to, in treating the drugs, there was a lot of relapse and really not a lot of success in the field at all. And part of the reason why is because they never look at it from a holistic point of view, because mental health played that role where they were doing the underlying issues. Today, now they changed the name. It's no longer alcohol dependency or drug dependency. It's called a disorder now. And we treat it in the same manner that we would treat any other substance that you use. And that could be food, that could be gambling, that could be a lot of things. So that is part of the reason why all these other listed substance abuse came alive, or in the sense it became more noticeable when you started looking at it from that point of view.
Oh wow, that's cool. So it went from kind of being a dependency thing to a disorder. So it's now been classified as okay. That helps to kind of paint the picture of how serious and more widespread it is than previously people realized. Okay.
But go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Because if it is we're looking from addiction from a Christian perspective, we first have to recognize what is addiction. And when it is, we want to sit back and just focus on one area of addiction. Technically, there's 5 areas of people can be addicted in, but like as I said earlier on, we often focus on the substances, which is the last aspect. Other than that, we have to recognize sin is the first addiction, and when it is we recognize where we are sinning or falling short, that we like to call it, is where our strongholds start developing without even recognizing. And that's how we start learning to cope. Because also when it is you start looking at addiction, you also have to base stuff on criteria. What criteria are you going to fall into to recognize, is it mild, moderate, or severe? So understanding the criteria of where you fall into is when it is we could truly address addiction.
One of the things is that anything you love can be an addiction.
Okay. Anything you love. So even your family, your spouse.
Even your family or spouse.
Can Jesus be an addiction?
Yeah, that's a high question there, because a lot of people say I'm addicted to Jesus, but that would be against biblical truth.
I think that's the only exception there.
Yeah, but I do have a question though. You mentioned Clarissa mild, moderate, severe. Can you break that down? Because so someone would know what. So if they want a man, do I have an addiction to food? All right, maybe I'm talking to myself, right? Like, what, can you break that down so people can know?
Okay, so based on the DSM-5, their criteria is between 1 to 2 would be considered mild. So when you have two criteria out of, because there's 12 criteria, from 3 to 6 is moderate, and then from 7 onwards is severe. So when it is you putting yourself in categories, so when it is we start thinking about the words habits, or you want to think about the word strongholds and all these different areas, it's how bad it's something is going to keep you from recovery. So what aspect are we going to start looking at? How much do I have to, you know how you would say you take Peter to pay Paul and Paul to pay all, that type of attitude. How much are you depleting yourself to people please? Or again, it depends on what area we're talking about. And you're right. Are we talking about food addiction? Because food addiction would fall underneath the aspect of substance abuse. When you're talking about sex addiction would fall under the aspect of um, people addiction. When it is you're talking about shopping and gambling, all these things will fall under activities addiction. Then you have feelings, and you also have thought processes, feelings and thoughts. So it depends on what area, because people would like to say, hey, I'm an introvert or something to that extent. What truly happened, because we're social creatures, what truly happened that actually got you to this point of being introverted, and the fact that we would use these words to just normalize the way that we handle stuff, or just isolate, because that's what addiction would cause, but we will call it the word introvert or extrovert. So it's the words that we tend to use is that how well we sit in our comfort zone and not deal with the true rooted issues, like as I talk about, to really get away from those strongholds or those bad habits.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I think about addiction, I think about something that you don't have full restraint from. Like, where most people could say, oh, I'm going to stop eating at this point, or oh, I'm going to turn the channel. I'm not going to watch that because I don't do that. Or though I may have an urge for a drink, I'm not going to do it. I mean, there's a certain level of self-control. Addiction seems to me to almost be where making a rational decision about what you should do versus what you are going to do kind of battle. Is that a correct, like, overhanging definition of like an addiction? Is that how it operates?
You can make that fit the description in a lot of ways. It's just another way of pointing out addiction. But the truth is that it's really the lack of power. Whatever it is that you're addicted to controls you. And the interesting thing about it is that you always believe that you are in control. You are out of control. And that is usually the biggest thing about it, is that the lack of addiction. And then when you talk about a jealous God, addiction controls you more. And you will pay more homage to the addiction than you would pay to God himself. And in power, the addiction, whatever it may be or whatever the source may be, that it has more control over you than anything.
Right. And that's why it's kind of referred to, like, as we said in our subject for the day, is an idol. It's something that kind of takes precedence for
Yes.
God in your life. And I know you mentioned, Clarissa, about the different types or forms of addiction. So to kind of help us talk about them, so we can kind of touch some of, substance addiction is one of the most popular, the ones we hear about the most when we're talking about alcohol, drugs, prescription medication. I mean, there are a lot of people who became addicted to painkillers. Some people, I've seen documentaries where people didn't even know they had addictive personalities or not until they had an injury, and suddenly they felt themselves chasing this relief, this euphoria that they felt from taking prescription drugs, something they were supposed to be taking, but then found themselves kind of leaning on them a little longer than they anticipated. So, with those type of things, just share with us some of the, how do you know when that might be your issue, based on the criteria that we.
But
So
based,
go ahead.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
One of the things that about the addiction is that a lot of people focus on the alcohol and drug, and I always thought that was the devil deception because it wasn't never the alcohol and drug. The problem is not even the alcohol and drug. The
Right.
problem is the underlying issues.
Hmm.
And that's when I was saying they were treating the drug and not the underlying issues. And now today we treat the underlying issues. And when you look at a lot of things, especially the beginning of addiction, especially with alcohol and drugs, it usually starts early in the family system, the underlying issues.
Okay, so are you saying, because I did hear that like alcoholism can be inherited, or are you saying because they have not dealt with family issues, alcoholism shows up?
Yeah, sometimes it's how dysfunctional the family is.
Hmm. Okay.
And then there's also the modeling that is done in the family as well.
Can I ask a question?
Doesn't necessarily have to be alcohol and drugs that the person. It could be a person can excel in that education. They can excel in a lot of areas, but still be affected as a result of being in that and growing up with alcohol and drugs.
Hmm.
So there could be a genetic predisposition plus an environmental factor plus trauma that triggers the predisposition.
You said
Yes.
it all. You said it all.
Hmm.
But again, in order for us to know that we're actually in an addiction, like as I said, I've never done drugs, never done alcohol, but I have addictive personalities. And the only way that you will have to identify that is by being aware. In the field, we like to say taking personal inventory, being aware of who you are as an individual. Because when you're in a household and you normalize certain behavior, how do you get out of it? You know,
Yeah.
how do you recognize, hey, this is not normal? It's normal for your family, but it's not normal for society. And where do you want to be? Because if it is, we're going back scripturally, biblically, um, what is this word? This chapter where it says, study yourself to show approval, a workman never be ashamed. So in order for you to know where you're at, you have to do some soul searching. Because here it is, the reason why we're having this conversation, because many of us tell ourselves, I can stop at any time. If you can stop at any time, why are we having this conversation today? Why has it impacted you in such a way that you're going downhill, literally? You
Mm-hmm.
know? First things I like to question is like, when I'm adult, who is you to talk to me this way or that way? Okay. Last time I checked, you was past 18. So who are you convincing? When you have to figure out that you have to convince somebody that you can stop, you ought to recognize that there is a problem.
There's a red flag.
Those are red flags. So here it is. How do you really recognize what you're truly going? How do you recognize where you at? You
Mm-hmm.
know, because it's like, just think, for instance, you're doing a budget. Your budget is the inventory for your financial status of how you run your household. Are you going to overspend? Are you going to try to borrow to get something to, again, take Peter to pay Paul attitude? When it comes to your physical and mental health, as addiction goes, how much are you taking from someone to make sure that you are actually stabilized?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Clarissa and James, I got a question. Just piggybacking on what you just said and what GP said. Um, as a therapist, you always taught to deal with the trauma. Try to get to the trauma first. So, what have y'all have things changed lately? Like over the last couple of years, is it different traumas that people experience that's pushing them to different addictions? Has anything changed, or is it really just the same thing that's been going on? Just yeah, has anything changed recently? I guess because with the technology that's out there, just any changes you've seen to addiction and trauma?
Um, if we talking about hidden idols,
Yeah.
um, and I was having this conversation with Mr. Jackson. Let's just go back when it is Moses went up to Mount Sinai and decide. Here it is. We always talk about them building a calf, right? While it is they waited period, but it's because of impulsivity. They couldn't wait to hear what the message is going to be. So also back when COVID started, Mr. Jackson, we used to go out and um, do Sabbath school out in the park. And one of the church members, she passed away now, she stated, we're giving water down message. So we watering down the Kool-Aid, the message that we ought to really teach, and for us to really make decisions. Here it is, because we become so codependent and we want to protect our family because we don't want to pass down all these different generational curses, we fail to actually teach our youth how to implement the faith-based atmosphere and make decisions from that aspect for self, rather than, hey, can I wait when we go out to college? Now it is, I can't make a decision, so what I'm going to do? I can't cope with the stresses of life, so what am I going to do? I'm going to follow the generation that is out here and build this family, and whatever they do, I participate in it, rather than being a unique and a peculiar people to stand out and say, that's not my lifestyle, this is not what I want, and really learn how to deal with the stresses of life that comes out here, because it's no different what we're dealing with today. It's just how we visualize the trauma, or we actually identifying it as such big words now, that we having more of an impact. Because if it is, we talk about mental health really blew up when COVID happened, but what we didn't talk about is also the addiction that went with mental health, because we're still stigmatizing the result of what is going to happen if people find out that we are addiction. So having that co-occurring piece, which is mental health and substance abuse disorder, how do we really talk about it from a spiritual aspect when it is we're never meant to talk about it? It's the pink elephant in the room where we really don't address.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons we wanted to even address it on the podcast, is because we're seeing a lot of it manifested in our churches, excuse me, in our homes, and we see it, but no one's talking about it. And sorry, tickle in my throat. And I really wanted to talk about specifically those other addictions, some of the behavioral addictions that people don't even classify as addiction, but it is. And one of those changes I've seen, Keena, is social media. The addiction to social media is something that I feel like we're seeing more of in this day and age, particularly with our young people. Can we
Yes.
talk about some of the other behavioral addictions? I mean, that's we're talking about gambling, pornography, even gaming, shopping, all of those things. How do we know when we're on social media too much? When gambling, even though we don't support gambling, period, but when you lose control with gambling, um, and even some of these other things that I mentioned.
And that's the thing. We keep focusing on one area because we have one area of our life that is associated with gambling. What about high risk behavior? Somebody who is actually doing pornography and all these things. Can't you see that is actually gambling with your life? You know? So, how do we really recognize what the thing or where we sit at in these actual emotions? Because when you're talking about um, pornography will really come underneath people addiction. When we're talking about behaviors, what it is, we're talking about thoughts and feelings, we're talking about obsessional thinking, we're talking about perfectionism, we're talking about rigid thinking, the all or nothing. Sometimes people just in their own fantasy world. That is part of thoughts. When it is you're talking about feelings, we're actually getting angry and we having road rage, but then we're going to be smiling about it afterwards. And we would just brush this off. That is normal behavior. But why would you get mad when it is somebody you don't even know what day they're going through? But because we're all about self and understanding it's only about the I, can I really be my brother's keeper? You know,
Well,
can I really truly show that compassion, or am I going to be a Jew or a Gentile? You know, so we talk about all these biblical scriptures and stuff, but when we have to sit down and truly exemplify it the way Christ wants us to do, we shortchange ourselves by saying we're born in sin and shaped in iniquity, which is still part of addiction. Are you going to stay in your addiction or are you going to recover from it? The process is yours.
Mm.
one of the things that we have to also look at is that addiction is usually made by a choice, and then some. To me, sometimes I don't think you always have a choice because of your environment. It's a learned behavior, but in most cases, the influence, and like you live in this world today, and you are influenced about a lot of things around you, but you don't pay very little attention to it. Like how much do you depend on your telephone, your phone?
Oh yeah.
And how great is that dependency becoming on your phone? And where would it, and how long will, when do you get to the point where you can balance it and say this is enough, and where some people go the other end? They
Mm.
become so dependent on it that they can't live without it. This
Yeah.
is a subtle way that a lot of things happen in our lives and begin to start the process of addiction. And the interesting thing about it, you can put your phone down on a table, you can put meat down on the table, you can put alcohol and drugs on the table, and that alcohol and drugs and phone will sit there forever. The only way it'll get into your system or get in your hands is you got to pick it up. And because of the fact that you can't stop picking it up, it means that it controls you.
Yes.
Mm.
Now you understand, you can identify where your addiction is.
Right.
Most people now, it's a subtle thing that happens. I know one young lady said she can stop eating potato chips for 20 years, just potato chips. But she didn't realize that she was in addiction. The other thing about addiction is that emotions and feelings play a big part in it. And we always talk about, I got issues,
Mm.
but you won't talk about those issues. You will always, more people hide their issues more so than talk about it. And the thing about treatment is simply talking about it.
Mm.
Like what happened and what it's like now.
Right.
There's nothing great, nothing so big about treatment other than learning how to talk about what happened in your life. What was it like growing up in your home?
Mm.
And
Mm.
then we go from there. But when we look at addiction today, of all the things of the world, we have to be very careful because especially with this AI thing coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
Mhm.
Okay, so we had a couple questions in the chat. I think we talked about this one already. What's that, Keenan?
So this is the book that Kenneth Branford at my church,
Journey.
Start a Recovery Ministry. And this is a
Yeah,
journey.
that is part of a set.
Mhm.
The journey
There's
to
four of them, really, and it's a book that goes with that
Yep.
that that teaches you how to chair the meeting, a
Mm,
meeting,
Yep. Journey to wholeness.
wholeness. Yes.
And I recommend every church has that recovery ministry at your church.
yes.
Mhm.
That's right. And we'll do that little plug right now. So if you know that you don't have a recovery ministry at your church right now, these are the two individuals within Allegheny East who can help you do just that. They have a recovery ministry at their church, Mount Olivet, correct?
yes.
Yes. Well,
In,
yes.
in Camden, New Jersey.
Yes.
And and they also have been instrumental in helping other churches start programs. So this is something, if it's something you know will be beneficial to your congregation, reach out and we'll make sure you get connected with them on how to start this ministry. So a couple of comments I wanted to bring up. We kind of talked a little bit about the cell phone thing, and I think it's something we kind of laugh off, like, oh man, I don't have my phone. I feel like I'm missing, you know, another appendage or something. Like, I need my phone. And I found myself, like, if I remember last year I went to Ghana, I something happened with my phone. I dropped my phone, fell, and it wouldn't work anymore. Now I'm in Ghana. I have limited access to what I'm doing on my phone anyway, but I just felt like something was missing. Like I had no peace because my phone was messed up. And I literally had to sit down and have come to Jesus moment with myself to say, wow, like, are you really that attached to your phone that you're so uncomfortable without having access to it, even in a place where you don't even have full access to it?
Mhm.
And it was humbling for me. And I had to, like, I just put my phone away. Now I will admit I ended up taking my husband's phone, but still, it was just coming to that realization of how attached I had become to that thing, so that when I was without it, I felt this void. And it was really telling for me. So now I try to be a little bit more intentional about being able to put my phone somewhere else and walk away from it, and
Mhm.
not be so tied down to it. So I definitely think, as you were talking about, Keenan, as we look at things that are newer, I think some of these addictions have developed over time as technology develops, as other things come to fruition. Because there was a time I didn't have a cell phone at all. Do you guys remember those days where we were just living life? We
And
didn't.
that's one of the questions I wanted to ask. And when we talked about based on criteria, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you know anybody's phone number by heart?
Yeah, I
Oh,
used
only a
to.
few. My husband and my
So
parents.
can we see how the phone take away part of our memory, which is you don't use it, you lose it attitude. And this is the reason why it's going to probably be in the DSM-5 pretty soon,
Mm.
because many people don't recognize they're losing part of their memory because they're not exercising it as well.
Mercy me.
So, how do you say it's not a problem when you can't remember people's phone number? Back in the day when it says you had the phone, you remember 10-digit numbers, you remember all these things. Now, today, your screen time, your minute time is limited to what? 4 minutes per watching something to keep you interested
Mm.
versus back then. So we see how the addiction happens. It is impacting you. If it is you keep banging your head like this, what's going to happen to your physical? So it's areas of your life that it impacts negatively is how we recognize that we're addicted to certain things.
Absolutely. We had someone that wanted us, we mentioned this a little bit about the fact that you can inherit or you have tendencies, hereditary tendencies. Can you talk a little bit more about what that looks like?
So again, depends on what type of addiction that we're looking at,
Okay.
right? If it is we're looking at alcohol, it's called fetal alcohol syndromes. It's basically features that people pick up and behaviors that actually impacts the child from birth onwards. It's probably the way they look, the way that they process information. Versus again, I grew up in a home with alcohol and gambling addiction and stuff. However, the impulsivity, the behaviors of how you handle communication style is not always too pleasant. And when you just you recognize that it impacts you of losing friends or can't make friends, how do you really address that? Do you sit back and say, hey, I'm just an introvert? Or you recognize, hey, it's because of all these existing factors that happen in the home, you actually start picking up these behaviors. As we said in the beginning, it can be learned behaviors, but it could also have physical and psychological aspect as well from the
Mm-hmm.
addictions. A child being born from a heroin person, they would also have to be withdrawn from birth. So it will also have some dependency of that type of drug. So growing up and stuff, hey, how do you know how to cope with certain things? You will only go back to your comfort zone, which we often tend to when we are in distress.
Right. And Mr. Byrne Howard shared that in his household,
Yeah,
where he grew up, adults used alcohol, just as you mentioned, Clarissa, to soothe behavior. So if you're a child, you're observing, oh, when they're upset, they drink. Then as you go on, you say, oh, this is what I saw my parents do or the adults in my household to do. So this is what I do. Not even recognizing it as an addiction, but just kind of like a learned
Behavior.
behavior. And then also, even if it doesn't show up as alcohol,
right.
sometimes people will find another thing
Substance.
to soothe them, to self-soothe. So it may not be the same addiction, but that addictive tendency can show up
Right.
in other places too.
They can use food. They can use anything. It doesn't necessarily always have to be alcohol and drugs. It could be anything that would sort of give them peace. It could be even the relationship.
Uh,
Yes.
Sharon said that was her. She was using. Thank you for the clarity.
Yeah, they can use anything to take the edge off.
Take
You know,
that off. Yes, that's why we're looking at it for underlying issues. A
Yeah.
lot of people don't always. They can grow up in an alcohol and drug family, but they don't necessarily have to choose alcohol and drugs. They
Exactly.
can use other means and other things to substitute in that. Okay? Because a lot of kids say, "Oh, I'd never drink when I get when I
Mhm.
grow up." Well, the only trouble is the behavior, the I guess you say the lesson and everything is already being taught. It's just a matter of you can grab anything as
Mm.
long as you grab something. And
Right.
that's where we deal with when we're talking about other addictions.
Hmm.
There's always the underlying issues.
It's that feel good moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I stopped eating chicken 13 years ago.
okay.
I used to say to myself is that they didn't have chicken in heaven, I didn't want to go there.
He said that's what you used to say.
But then one day I woke up and I found out that chicken had more control over me than I realized.
Mm.
I mean, even my car could find, especially at camp meeting where there was no meat at all. As soon as I left camp meeting, my car would find a chicken place in a minute.
You were in withdrawal, huh?
But yeah, I was going through withdrawal, and
That's exactly what it is.
so
No.
I mean, and when I had a lot of comfort when I stopped
Mm. And
because
that's
now I was in control.
right.
okay, that's all.
Okay.
I say as far as giving treatment to people, how do you know when someone is serious? Because oftentimes, you know, I've met with people trying to give them treatment, and they say all the right things. Do this thing called motivational interviewing, and they do say all the right things. Then I get a call later, hey, they back out there again. Like, what? We just had a great session, and how do you know when someone is serious or just kind of pulling you along or something like
But one of the part of the disease is manipulation,
Mm.
that?
and that they are great at as long as they can. And when you're dealing with a person who's actively using a substance, you're in a war, you're in a battle. If you don't know what you're doing, I would suggest you get out of it because you will never win the battle. And I'm going to tell you why. Because you will not stay up 24 hours thinking about how to get over on you. but they will stay up all day long, all night long, trying to figure out how to beat you.
Mm. And I feel like a lot of them go to therapy, like
And they know all the answers.
because so they can say I'm in therapy, you
Right,
know. So if
right.
somebody brings it up, like, oh well, I'm going to therapy. I'm talking through this thing, even though they may not have any intentions
Mhm.
of changing. But it's a good line to kind of get people
Right.
off your back, right?
Yeah. And they also use treatment. I got to go to inpatient. And they realize that there's a stage you just can't go to inpatient without going to outpatient. You have to fail at outpatient before you go inpatient. They are aware of that.
Mm.
And so they would tell you, well, I'll go if you take me to inpatient. You know? So they use even the therapy sessions.
To
I
get
mean,
out of there.
therapy, it's not anything. You can baptize active user as long as they can get something out of it. If they think they're going to get something out of it, then you can baptize them all day long.
Okay, so Brother Jackson, you shared earlier that you're in recovery.
Yeah.
So share with us what was that turning moment for you that made you shift from making excuses, manipulating those around you, to being serious about getting on the right path?
Well, one of the things was I came up in the school of the prophets, so that was a problem right there. When I got into the addiction, I was, it was like doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And then one day you get sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Mm-hmm.
And you may not know the answers out, but you're willing to try anything. And that was the point I got. I think a lot of it was not so necessarily me trying. I think it was a lot of people praying for me.
Mm.
Because I don't think I was at that point where I could make that decision. It's like asking me to make a decision when I'm under anesthesia. I mean, when I'm under anesthesia, something like that.
Yeah.
And that was not a decision. But when they took me and put me into a detoxification, I began to understand things, and I was willing to go to treatment and all those things. When I came out of treatment, God blessed me with a support system. I had several people that was always around me that had a long history of recovery. Plus, one of them was an Adventist elder,
Mm.
and he was the one that really got me. Because see, at that point, I didn't think Jesus loved me.
Mm.
So
Mm.
and
That's
because I didn't think Jesus loved me, and then all the things I've done, I don't think He can forgive me.
mm.
I had a hard time breaking that here to the point where I could believe that
You
He
would.
forgave me. Right,
Yeah.
right. So actually, I was more scared of Jesus than I was in love with Him.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Listen, you're preaching here now.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that, as we talk about what can our churches do to support addicts, I don't want to call it, I hate
Well,
to say
actually, the church, that hospital that everybody always talk about, they never worked towards it being a hospital.
that. Mm.
Like we was in the meeting Friday, and the young lady was happy about Joshua and Caleb and their faithfulness.
Mm.
Then she put a but on it, you know. So when the but came, is about how she would like to be there. And what happens then is that's where the problem is that instead of doing the but, she should have said, well, what is my barrier stopping me from being there?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not often done by taking a personal inventory. So
I,
the 12 steps that we use, and you was describing that manual that you just showed me, is the 12-step recovery program based on the Alcohol Anonymous that we use. And those 12 steps really identify and answer most of the questions that we are dealing with. Because first of all, it tells you got to build a relationship with Christ. Second, you got to build a relationship with yourself. And third, you need to build a relationship with others.
Okay.
I would like to also add because it said, how can the church identify? First, we ought to identify words are powerful. And the fact that when we use words, I know we would also refer them to addicts, but if it is, we understand the word addicts was used long before, and that's a destigmatization word. And here it is. Are you shaming the person when they come in to give back their life? One of the things that often asks people, hey, do you want to be convicted? In the outside world, we don't want to be convicted. So we do everything to make sure we stay out of jail, right?
Mm.
But when we come into the church, we want to be convicted by the Holy Spirit. So when we auto recognize who do we want to be convicted by, is when we will actually start sharing our stories so
Mm.
that the church doesn't convict us from this perspective of, because I'm telling my story, you hold me hostage or in bondage the way I used to be. Because this is where I am trying to get to, which is being convicted by the Holy Spirit. We ought to recognize, hey, if you don't have the actual word, sometimes just listening might be more important. And then actually helping or finding somebody to refer them to who could actually help them to stay in the church, you
Mm.
know, because the carnal part of us will always do what's right, but the spiritual part will always have to justify. God understands my heart. God understands, and we that's where we battle and rest. But we have to be mindful of how we're using the words aspect to make sure that we keep the person being convicted in Christ and not convicted by
Whatever's they're addicted to.
yes.
And how do we do, like, how do we do that as a church? How do we become less of a having less of a shaming culture and more of like a grace filled culture where people feel like they have a space where they could be honest about maybe what they're struggling with, ask for people to pray for them, like you were sharing, Brother Jackson. That was part of your story. People were praying for you through this when you didn't have the strength to do it for yourself.
Right.
So, how do we help our churches get to that point? Is it to have an Adventist Recovery Ministries?
That you said it. You said it is to have the evidence, because you have the compassion project going on.
Mhm.
But compassion, as I mentioned before, is something that grows with you. Being kind is something you can do today and take off tomorrow.
Mm.
The church needs to learn how to be more compassionate when people come in there that doesn't always look and act and speak the same way they do. We find that not to be so in most Adventist churches. Uh, and taking a personal inventory and remembering where you come from
Well,
help will help you, deal with people coming in the church. But we don't like to remember where we come from, you know.
hmm
And because of that, we will always separate. And the thing about a person coming in that door comes in there for many reasons.
Mm.
Well, one of the things they do learn over the years, and I can tell you I can learn over the years, is when somebody is jiving them in a sense of word of speaking. You know, I
yeah,
don't feel you, because I know what that is. I know the difference between being manipulated and being honest with me, and what happens is a lot of times you come into the church and they feed you addiction.
Mm.
hmm
And I'm saying because of the fact that they're trying to manipulate you, and then you go back into your world and your bag of trying to out manipulate them. And the reason why is because the person want a star in their crown, but they're not really interested in you.
mm.
Mm.
Mercy, mercy.
Mm. Yeah, I
And
think that,
But the Adventist Recovery Ministry will help a lot because let's just say it starts the development of the church where it can become a hospital as it's supposed to be.
yeah,
All right.
yeah, I was going to say just during the holiday season, um, yeah, what many people want to use things to cope, to make it
Hmm.
through. the holiday season, what advice would you have for churches? Anything that they can do, of course, start the recovery ministry, but anything they need to be on alert of, especially during this time, during these holiday seasons when it comes to addiction.
And especially when it comes to addiction, like in the 12-step program, and they have marathons all during the addicted season. And that would be what we will be working towards. If you can give us members from your church or identify members from your church that are willing and able to start a meeting, and eventually we will be able to fill out our calendar, and we will have such a setup going. But right now we're in the beginning stage of being able to deal with. It's not just alcohol and drugs. There's a lot of senior citizens are spending a lot of time by themselves
Mm.
over the holiday weekend, just wanting somebody to talk to or somebody to come by, and that they have the privilege of even doing that. There's no limit to what can be done. But
Absolutely. And I think too, when we talk about being more compassionate, especially during this time of the year where people are already suffering from
right,
seasonal depression and things of that nature, is letting go of this. Why don't you just stop? Because I think for a lot of people, if it's not your personal struggle, it's like, well,
right,
just put the bottle down, or
yeah,
why
yeah,
don't you go out there? We try to make it seem so simple.
mm-hmm.
And I think when we recognize that, as Clarissa shared earlier, it is a disorder. It is
Yes.
it's something that they're struggling with beyond, just making a good choice or a bad choice.
It's like TB, it's just like cancer, it's just like,
Right.
right.
Yeah. And even though it may have come from environmental, but
Right.
even cancer can be
Yeah.
environmental,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
so addiction should be viewed the same way. Because I
Right.
do think, particularly those who grew up in maybe homes where addiction was present and they were
Mm-hmm.
very frustrated that the adults in their lives were not making good decisions, they have a
Right.
little bit of resentment towards those who just don't do the right thing. But a lot of people grow up as adults and
Right.
come to understand that, wow, they really didn't know how to stop. Like this was really a struggle for them, and some of them are able to offer compassion. And I just feel like, it's like that hierarchy of sin. When we're looking at someone else, oh, they're doing that. Somebody's addicted to drugs and alcohol. You're addicted to food and shopping and social media, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not as bad as that. But
Right.
much like we say, sin is sin, addiction is addiction,
Addiction. Right.
and we have to call it what it is.
And the
Yeah.
oldest addiction, and the oldest addiction is sin.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And when you look at it all, it's just sin. It
yeah,
all comes under the head of sin, no matter how you look at it.
absolutely.
So I have a question. What can we do to, like, you're talking about having our churches become safe spaces? We have a lot of arrogance and pretense and people pretending
Yes.
they have everything together.
Yeah.
What can we do as church leaders to change that culture to be more vulnerable and safe?
Uh,
Mhm.
uh, Other than preaching about it, I other than making people aware of it. There is a lot of folks in the church who are not even aware of the underlying issue. There's when the person sit up and say, "I got an underlying issue," which one of them issues can they take to heaven with them?
Mm.
And they will sit there for years with them underlying issues, but never say anything.
Mhm.
And so making them more aware of them, and then having them place a place where they can go and start processing, like the Adventist Recovery Ministry, then you may be able to start the ball rolling. I'm not saying it's going to be a success, but if you get a small group in your church starting to practice it, it will become part of the church dynamic eventually, I would think.
But
Mhm.
I would also add, if we as the individuals start taking off that layer of mask,
Yeah.
it's then we can see vulnerability, because freedom comes from what? Knowing. And if we are an individual who it is we pretend to know,
Hmm.
it's only so long your secrets will be hidden for. And it's only so long we can keep up the charade for. But when you're being authentic and see where your source comes from, which is from Christ, He will reveal it to you.
Hmm.
And in order to do that, we have to stop learning how to exemplify our faith and start teaching people how to implement our faith, because that's where codependency comes in it. When we enable people to not talk about their stories or to not be vulnerable, are we truly teaching them how to unlayer themselves so when Christ comes, we don't have shame and guilt anymore? We can be free and truly free indeed by learning how to sit with our emotions, identify what's happening with our emotion, and find a place to put it. And that's at the foot of the cross.
Amen.
Also recognizing that at times like this, we need the church as a support system, and everybody should be more friendly towards each other. We should be more comfortable with each other. We should, but that's not even happening. And that sister next to you may be the one that helped you make heaven your home.
Exactly.
And so we need to be more sociable creatures, and we're not as social as we should be. And the reason why we're not as sociable is because we're sitting up with so many secrets, and we
Exactly.
are as sick as our secrets. And
Yeah.
because of our secrets, we don't let you get close to me or close to each other.
You might sniff something out. Yeah.
I remember.
And you may find out my secrets. So everybody goes their different. You can go to church and have people in the church for years that don't know where the other person worked at.
That's true. That is so true.
Revealed, it can't be healed.
Mhm.
I remember one time having a conversation with my daughter, and I said to her, she's like, "But mommy, they're talking about me." I said, "Learn to tell your story so no one can hold you hostage." When
Right.
you
Mm.
learn how to release stuff, you're no longer at that location living because you have grown from that space. So once we learn how to release our stuff, no one can hold us hostage.
Mhm. Yeah. I'm seeing more people use church as a space where they can be vulnerable, and as a result they attract people who are struggling with similar things, and they almost breathe a sigh of relief to know that everyone in the church isn't perfect.
Right.
There's someone willing to share that they are struggling with something and even ask for help. And I think maybe we need to do a little bit more of that within reason. I mean, I remember back in the day when they were like, you shouldn't testify about everything. They used to say, be careful. But I think went too far to the extreme where we don't share anything. But we present
Exactly.
ourselves as though everything is going well in life. Just give it to Jesus and everything will work out. And I even think, GP, to your question, we should have more messages that normalizes the fact that many of us have addictions that
Yeah.
many of us may not even recognize. I mean, I think
We need to deal more with our issues.
yeah.
Also, Tasha, I wanted to say one other thing before you. The women are better at it than the men are.
Uh-oh.
The men got too much.
Was that ever a debate?
Watching now. You're saying we're better at masculine?
Actually, women ministry function well because they learn how to socialize and talk together.
Yeah.
Men ministry, I'm not saying it's getting there, but I have been to men's ministry and we had went there and we had good preaching and good talking, but I didn't even know the guy next to me or get to socialize or anything. Just went to the basics.
Right.
And what I'm saying is that we need to get more knowing each other individually and collectively. That's all.
All right. I hear you. You called us out, Brother Jackson. You
No,
said
no, that's a,
women
that's
need
a
to.
compliment. Is a compliment because the women they're so used to sharing, like that
Oh,
comes
that's
from.
what you're
Right,
saying.
right, right,
Oh.
right.
Oh, you said we're better at being social. I thought you
And
were
men
saying.
deal with that machoism.
Yeah, men just hold it in, You
Yeah.
know,
Oh,
and
I got you now.
just
I'm
negativity.
gonna tell another man my weakness.
Yep, and then die of a heart attack. Just keep it all in and die.
I got you.
And I know some men that will rather die than share their
Yeah,
wound.
yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah. But that shows too how other ministries in the church can collaborate with things, because when you have a strong men's ministry or
Yeah.
women's ministry where people are building bonds, the likelihood of them being vulnerable with each other and sharing tends to increase. So there's that overlapping of how the ministries work together. Very quickly, because I know we're at the end here, but a couple of people had a couple of comments that I want to get to. Um, um, Miss said, I have a lot of churches that I haven't visited in person pray for me because I find less passive aggression amongst familiar faces. So,
Really?
so she does a lot of church hopping as a result. But Ryan had a question. He said, how do you deal with addiction in the church when there are no people who know how to treat it and your conference has no resources? He must not be part of Allegheny East.
Alex, she can't be in Allegheny.
Can't be a part of it. But go answer that, because I think that might be an issue, which is one of the reasons why we want to bring attention to Adventist recovery
Well,
ministry.
there is treatment. They keep asking for treatment, and I keep telling you, treatment is only learning how to talk about it,
Mm.
what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now.
Mm-hmm.
And if you afraid to talk about what happened to you, then you're holding yourself hostage.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you really look at the road you've been down, it demonstrates to you how Christ has brought you from A to Z.
Yeah.
And then you are really telling Christ's story and glorifying Him. They said something like the rocks may holler, yeah,
Yeah.
call
They'll cry out.
you know.
Yeah. Lisa.
And a lot of folks are waiting for the rocks because they're not talking about what God done for them.
Mercy.
And that's shame and guilt about what happened. They
Yeah.
rather see you as they rather be seen as like they were always where they are.
Well, it makes people feel better. You know, we get on our righteous high horses, and as long as you're down there, then I can feel a little bit better about my status and
Right.
where.
And you have a hard time being there and then working with somebody coming in the door.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of humbling. Thank you, Ryan. I was just playing, but thanks for clarifying that. And then also, Fernanda shared that people have to be able to trust who they're sharing information with, and that's another thing we can work on. As oh, you said no, you're debating that.
Oh, you see, again, we gotta look at words, because where does trust come from?
Yeah.
Where does trust come from? I use the analogy time and time again, and I think we've heard it. You go on a plane and you see the pilot. Um, you don't know the pilot, but yet still you trust him. Sometimes the birds trust who? His wings or God?
Hmm.
When we come into this word trust, it plays on our psyche that I can't trust you. But until you learn to trust yourself and trust God, because that's where the messages come from. Because here it is, we don't want to hold resentment for people because we're afraid when we tell our stories that they will go back. But
Right.
like as I said earlier, when it is you tell your story and you tell it from your truth, whosoever decide to add in or take out or put it in a space where it is they make you feel guilty for telling your story, you know exactly who to talk to next. But that doesn't mean you can't trust God, because when you tell your story, who are you telling it for?
Hmm.
Right? Who are you telling it for is one. Who are you trying to glorify is the next one.
Mm.
Because when we sit back and tell our story, my story is a message of hope. And here it is. The reason why I went through that is to show somebody God goodness based on my behalf, that what he have done for me and how he have brought me out of this and how he can bring you out of it. Because when we sit down and talk about our story, we have to learn how to identify and not judge the next person. Because as you said rightfully, Natasha, when we're talking about addiction, your marijuana is no different from your gambling. It is no different from your from your substance addiction, because here it is, we're recognizing how it brought us from a place of hurt, and now that we're recovering, is how it's going to glorify God and who we keep putting on that pedestal. But when we start talking about trust, we really have to understand, who are you trusting? It's not the person that is telling your story, but what God is doing with your story. That is what we got to learn how to trust.
Hmm. That's a good point. I didn't think about it that way.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it says God doesn't share what hurts. But yeah, I think too, asking yourself, why am I sharing this? Might be, if you're sharing it because you want people to accept you and to respect your confidence, that may not be enough. If you're sharing it because you want to be free from it and you want to help somebody else, then no matter what happens, you've accomplished maybe what God has asked you to do to free someone else. So I
And
think,
But then again, I don't want to go on too long to this because we can go into a
right.
long thing about it. But we also have to recognize, here it is. I kind of lost my train of thought. But here it is. When it is we don't share, right? When
Mhm.
we don't share, what are you holding it on for?
yeah.
You don't want to be shamed.
In
It's
the in the in
preservation.
the in AA, they tell you in order to keep it, you got to give it away.
Mm.
You have to, because that's the
Mm.
only way you can be free.
So that's why I can talk about me so freely.
Yeah, look at it. You look free. You look free.
Now,
Um,
now let me tell you about my nutty side.
I know we do have to wrap up. This is definitely an important topic, and I hope people are hearing tonight from our conversation. One, doing a little self inventory. What
Hmm.
things may
Yeah,
I be addicted to that I maybe not have realized? What am I putting before God? What idols do I put before
right.
Savior? Also, and I'll let everyone else share their takeaways as well. Also, um, that whole thing about um, I don't want to say recognizing, but understanding what you may think you did not inherit from your family because you saw it and recognized it as bad, may show up somewhere else if you're not careful,
Right.
and you have to be aware of that. And also being in a space where I can be compassionate towards others who may be struggling with addiction, understanding that though it may seem like a choice on their part, it is a disorder that needs compassion just like any other disease or disorder. Okay.
Mhm.
Any other takeaways from the group that we want to leave with before we go?
Get help. See a therapist.
Hmm.
Even
Talk
if you
to-
even if you think you may like, oh, this ain't that deep, just go see a therapist. Just talk to somebody. See, and then start a recovery ministry at your church. Reach out
Mhm.
to Brother Jackson and Sister Matthew. Start a recovery ministry at your church.
Amen.
Amen.
I love
Amen.
that.
And you can call us
Yes. Is this their hotline or you want another number for them?
on the hotline. You can
All
call us on
right.
the hotline.
We have a hotline. Let's let them know we have Allegheny East through our Adventist Recovery Ministries has started a recovery support hotline. And this is just peer support. We want to
And
make it very
information.
yes, and information. So you can call if you are someone who needs a little help, support about what to do if you're struggling with addiction, but also
If
if
you
you're
want to
someone
help
that
us,
wants to start one, right? You want to start a ministry in your local church and you want to know where to begin, where to get those books that Keenan was sharing with us. This
and
is a line you can call.
if you want to become a part of the team, we're looking for team members in
Mhm.
each church.
Yeah. So even if you just have an interest, because Clarissa, like you said, you saw a post or something, an invitation from Jackson, and you decided to get involved, and now you've become very passionate about it. That may be someone else out there who
Exactly.
may have a personal passion for something like this. Now's the time to. This is a ministry that deserves attention. People need help. People want to be free. And if you're looking for another way to give back, this is definitely one of the ways to do that. So please, and for those who are listening, let me just say the number 484-366-1925. That's 484-366-1925. This is for our recovery support hotline. Okay, so please share it with someone else that you think may benefit. This is definitely a judgment-free
So,
line,
Right.
and people are willing and anxious about helping.
and one thing I would like to say, just as how you would see a physical doctor for just a regular checkup, nothing is wrong with checking your mind.
Mm.
Because if you're brain damaged today, the first thing they would ask to do is pull the plug.
Mm, yeah,
So don't pull the plug on yourself because you think you have it all together. You don't use it, you lose it. So be
that's right.
mindful.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you both. And as Rochelle shared, Um, we are going into Thanksgiving. By the time we talk to you all again, Thanksgiving will have happened. We're going to have our special Thanksgiving episode next Sunday. But we definitely want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving season as you are with family and friends. And even if you're not, we have a lot to be thankful for. And I think that's the context in which
Man,
we celebrate. And so let's focus on those things. But also, once again, if you know someone that could use someone to talk to, or you want to start a line, a ministry support, don't forget our hotline 484-366-1925. And we appreciate you reaching out. Thank you so much, Brother James Jackson, Sister Clarissa Matthews, for joining us.
it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure.
Was.
Yeah, we appreciate your ministry and what you're doing to help so many people. We definitely need more people like you out there helping others. So thank you.
Indeed.
Yes. All right. Well, we'll see you back here next time. Same time, same place. And come with thankful hearts next Sunday. We want to hear what you're thankful for this year. So we look forward to seeing that in our comments next week. But thanks for watching us. Have a great week and a great Thanksgiving when it comes. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.